So hello, my name is Tomas Sapak, and I will, in this presentation, I will show you what KYPO Lite is, and I will show you live demonstration of KYPO Lite. So why KYPO Lite and what KYPO Lite is? KYPO was open sourced around 18 months ago, and we quickly decided that we quickly realized that it's really hard to deploy KYPO, and it's really hard to configure. Basically, you need to be DevOps expert to be able to do it, because there are some requirements like OpenStack, and it's a really complex task to deploy OpenStack and KYPO. There are particularly two use cases where this can be a problem. Basically, first, if you want to use some cyber range, you probably want to deploy some proof of concept installation, and you don't want to allocate resources before you know that it can have value for you. And the other use case is that if you want to develop a training for CyberRange, you probably, again, don't want to allocate too much resources just for deploying KYPO, because you don't want to deploy KYPO. You want to use KYPO and you want to development trainings for KYPO. So we've decided that we will create this brand new tool. We call it KYPO Lite. And probably the biggest benefit is that it has zero configuration. So you don't need to understand at all anything about OpenStack or about deploying KYPO, about configuring KYPO. You will not configure anything here. To deploy it is basically just 4 commands and 40 minutes, approximately 40 minutes, depending on your hardware and or your internet speed. So in approximately 40 minutes, even here in this presentation, we should have a live KYPO instance deployed without any issues. And one of the other big benefits is that for KYPO Lite, you can use most of the major cloud providers. You can use your own desktop, or you can use some of your company servers. So what are the requirements? They are really easy. Minimum hardware requirements is a system with 4 CPUs and 32 GB of RAM. Recommended hardware requirements are 8 CPUs and 44 GB of RAM. The minimum requirements are for working platform and some basic demo training. But if you want to create some more complex training, I definitely recommend to have the recommended hardware requirements. Another thing you will need to have is if you are using your desktop or physical server, you will need hardware virtualization support. If you are using virtual machines or cloud provider, you will need to have nested virtualization supported. And the last one, this you need Ubuntu focal version to make this work. Now, this is the architecture of KYPO Lite. So basically, your desktop or your server is this blue rectangle. You will then start KYPO Lite in this on your machine, and it will create another nested machine, virtual machine, this green one, for you. It will install OpenStack and other requirements into this green rectangle or this virtual machine. And then it will use OpenStack to create these 2 virtual machines, this portal virtual machine and this proxy virtual machine. And then it will deploy KYPO to these nested virtual machines. And then you as user can interact with the portal and create your sandbox environments. One thing I would like to encourage you to do or recommend you to do, if you have powerful enough desktop, use your desktop, because then you will be this user and you can interact with the KYPO portal the same way. How would you interact with any web service through your browser? If you don't have this this desktop, because yeah, I can imagine it's really it's too much resources probably for most of the notebooks, laptops, or desktops, you definitely can use some server or a virtual machine, but then you will need to tunnel your network traffic over SSH to this virtual machine. Actually, I will be doing this today. It's not hard, but it's one little complication. Okay, so now I will show you the demo. It's a live demo, so I hope that I will be successful. The reason for why I'm doing this this live is that I want to show you that it's really easy, that you can do this. I'm not using my desktop because I could have something pre-installed here. I will create a cloud virtual machine. I will use Google Cloud. I will use Ubuntu vanilla image. So everything I will be doing here today, you can do exactly the same as me. So if I'm successful today, you should be also. Okay. So what will I need? What I need to deploy KYPO Lite? First, I will need to access this repository. It's a public repository, so you should be able to access it by yourself now. Currently, I will deploy virtual machine to Google Cloud. This is something you can skip if you are using your desktop. It's just additional step for me because I want to show you that I will use empty or newly created virtual machine from vanilla Ubuntu image. I've prepared a Terraform for this, Terraform code, so I don't need to do it in web GUI. I will just start this Terraform code and it will create the virtual machine for me. Okay, so I've already configured my access to the Google Cloud. This is something you would probably need to do in case you want to use my Terraform. But again, it shouldn't be a problem for you. You will just use this code and there is a README. I am not sure whether there is some issue with our GitLab right now, but I can start with creating the virtual machine in Google Cloud. So I will use Terraform and I will call apply. What this do for me, it will create 3 cloud resources. It will create firewall rule because I want to access my virtual machines over SSH. Then it will create virtual machine itself in Google. And the last one, it will create SSH key for me and I will use this SSH key to access this virtual machine. Okay, so I will confirm it with yes. And what I especially like about Google Cloud, it takes just 30 seconds to create a new virtual machine for me. So we will need to wait a bit. Okay, so I can see that my firewall rules are created. Virtual machine is still being created. Yeah, and it's finished. And from Terraform, I will get the IP address which I can connect to. And then I will need to export my private key to access this virtual machine. So I will need to export my SSH private key. Okay, so I will do this like this. And then I will need to connect my Ubuntu instance. So I will use SSH. I will use my newly created key. I will use Ubuntu user, and I will use this IP address. Okay. Strangely enough, it seems that this IP address was used by me before. So this is new virtual machine. So the SSH key is not the same. So I will need to remove it. Then I will connect again. I will confirm it. And I can see that I have a new virtual machine. Uptime is 1 minute. Okay, so I will log in as root and I will update system packages. Okay, so now I have a new virtual machine. Okay, so now I will start with deployment. I will need to do 4 steps actually. I will need to clone the repository. So it's the first step. I hope it will, if it's not working from here, it will work in the system, in the Google Cloud. Yeah, so in Google Cloud, it is possible to connect our GitLab. I don't know what is my issue, but it's not a problem. Okay, so this is the first step. The second step is entering the directory. Yeah, really easy. Third step will be installation of dependencies from package manager. And what those dependencies actually are, it's 2 pieces of software. First is KVM hypervisor, so it's basically open source hypervisor. It's something like VirtualBox The other one is Vagrant. Vagrant is used to automate this deployment process. So basically, I have this Vagrant file, which is a text file, and it will deploy new virtual machine based on this Vagrant file. So there is some description how many CPUs, how many RAM should be used, what is the size of the disk, and then it's basically one big shell script which will do everything for me. Okay, so the dependencies are being installed, and it will be finished soon. Yeah. So this was the third command, and as I mentioned, it will be 4-command deployment. So we are almost finished actually. And this last command is here, and it's basically just Vagrant Hub. So I will execute it with the time parameter or time program. That's I'm using time because I want to measure how long this deployment process will be. Okay, so I will execute it. And what's happening currently? Vagrant is downloading another Ubuntu image. Why there is another Ubuntu image? This Ubuntu image is for this green virtual machine. So first I created this blue virtual machine in Google Cloud, and now Vagrant creates this another nested virtual machine inside, and it's downloading Vagrant Ubuntu image, and it will use this image to create this virtual machine. So it will be downloaded in a few seconds, and then it will start this image in locally installed KVM. As I already mentioned, you can use most cloud providers. If you don't have powerful enough machine, you can use most cloud providers. We are using Google Cloud because we have the best experience with it. You can use Amazon Web Services, but the problem with Amazon Web Services is that you can use only bare metal flavors, and bare metal flavors are really expensive. Then we tried Microsoft Azure, but because Microsoft Azure is using Hyper-V as hypervisors, I think that there was the source of some issues we have with this nested virtualization. So we use this Google Cloud platform, and one of the benefits of Google Cloud is that they will give you some free credit. So even if you don't want to spend any money and you just want to try KYPO, you can do it for free. Okay, so now I can see that my KVM instance was booted, and it starts to install software in this virtual machine. This process, again, as I mentioned, it will take probably around 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So I will end my first part of presentation here, and I will return in the end. And now I will give floor to the other panelists. So I will have the last part of my presentation. We will have a look if we were successful deploying KYPO Lite, because we had these issues with networking here, but since we use Google Cloud, I think it should be okay. Okay, so I will share my screen. So we can see that KYPO Lite was actually successful. Everything went fine. If there was some issue, it wouldn't apply successfully here. And we can see that the deployment was finished in almost 42 minutes. So as I advertised, if you use the public cloud platform, you should have working KYPO approximately in 40 minutes. Now, as I mentioned before in my presentation, in this architecture, I am currently outside of this black box, this blue box, this blue rectangle. So I will need to tunnel my traffic, my network traffic over SSH to this blue box. It's actually pretty easy. It's not complicated. I will use SSH shuttle command for it, and what will it do? It will send over SSH all traffic to this subnet, And actually, the IP address of the KYPO portal, which was generated for me, is from that subnet. So I will just copy paste it. I will need to use my GCP key, which was generated in the beginning. So I will add it to my SSH agent. It is in the directory of Terraform. Hello. No, it's in my local directory. Sorry. Yeah, it's here. So I will add it to my SSH agent. And now I can open the tunnel. So I will use Ubuntu user. I will use the IP address of the Google machine. Yeah, I will need to put my user password because it's doing some advanced network redirection. So yeah, I need admin privileges. Yeah. So now my traffic is tunneled through this Google virtual machine, and I can access KYPO portal in my browser. Okay, so I will need to accept the certificate. The reason for it is that I use this private IP address, so I'm not able to acquire public certificate for it. Okay, and we can see that I have working KYPO portal. So I will log in. I will use KYPO admin. KYPO admin is default user, and password is password. This is pretty secure because I needed to use my SSH key to access this machine, so I wouldn't be able to do it without that key. So it doesn't matter that password is not strong because nobody else is able to access this virtual machine except of me. So as you can see, in 40 minutes, full KYPO portal was deployed with the full functionality. Only limitation is this one virtual machine. So it can't be used for big trainings, and I can use it only myself, or if I give somebody my SSH key, he's able to use it also. But KYPO Lite is actually not very good for production because it's not strong suite of KYPO Lite to allow access to multiple users, and you are limited to one single virtual machine. But if you want to create content, or you want to create proof of concept instance, it should work for you pretty well, because in all other aspects, it's completely same as KYPO pool or KYPO standard. Yeah, and I will need to upload some sandbox definition, as Tom showed in his last presentation. So this demo training, actually, I will get a URL of this demo training again from my console. So I will just copy it. Yeah. I will hit create. I will pass the URL. I will use master revision. I will create again. As you can see, the demo training was successfully uploaded. Now, and I can now create a pool of sandboxes. I will create one pool with just one sandbox size. I will select my demo training. I will hit create, and the pool was successfully created for me. And I can hit allocation. And as you can see, if I continue here, my sandbox is being allocated. It's in the first stage. First stage is allocation in OpenStack. And we will have a look if everything is working here. Yeah, it will probably take a few seconds. One of the other downsides of KYPO Lite is that since there is nested virtualization, the speed is definitely lower than if you used like proper KYPO deployment. Okay, I will check resources because and I can see that already 6 instances are allocated in my KYPO project. So it's being deployed. Okay, I will check it again. Okay, so we probably won't need to wait until it's, yeah, so it was finished. We are just not able to see the console. I'm not sure why, but we can see that the second stage is currently running. So the virtual machine was deployed in the internal OpenStack, and now now they are being provisioned. Okay, so I think what we saw here was that it's really easy to use KYPO Lite, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. You don't need any deep knowledge about KYPO. You don't need any deep knowledge about OpenStack. You don't need to be DevOps expert. You just need a virtual machine or desktop or anything with Ubuntu focal, and you will just execute those 4 commands that I used. First command was git clone. Second command was changing directory. Third command was installation of dependencies via Ubuntu package manager. And the last command was just background up. So nothing special. It is cut and paste. You will wait for more than 40 minutes and you have this working KYPO instance. So I think it's easiest as it gets.